I thought, since this is the epitome of European modernism, the temple, and above everything, a museum that still retains an aura, unlike many other museums in the world, despite being very good museums, maybe have become more commercial or more mainstream. Moderna Museet still has this kind of brand for integrity and modernism at the same time. I thought, okay, let's turn a wall of Moderna Museet into the most baroque and the grandest theater in the world. So I thought it was part of this game of contrast and provocation that sometimes I put up in my work, and try to replicate this similar dynamic on the space. So we took a picture of the most baroque theater in Turin, Teatro Carignano, and then we blew it up to a wallpaper along 50 meters. So somehow it's always interesting to challenge the space, to turn them into something they're not supposed to be, which is something I do, I guess, with actors or public figures that I ask to be in my work. I try to subvert the notion of their public identity as much as I try to subvert the notion of the classical modernist architecture of Moderna by turning it into a Baroque theater. We all know that there are trends and like groups of people that determine taste and appreciation and critical value. And I felt that for very, very long, Dalí has been underestimated. I think his influence on Warhol has been underestimated. And I feel even more that, strangely enough, now America has come to terms with late Warhol and being very appreciative, especially recently after there have been some great exhibition about Warhol television, and really the latest part of his production, which I always thought was amazing. And somehow, because of a maybe very strong academic tradition, I don't know really the reason, the similar kind of revaluation has not occurred yet for Dalí. This is my impression. So I'm happy to be part of a form of celebration of this figure that, I mean, I know this has been said many times, but anticipated the two main influences that contemporary art is going through, which is fashion and cinema. We're still stuck there 100%.
Some people would use the word camp when they talk about your art.
I know.
How do you feel about that?
It's okay, I forgive them. I forgive them. I know I've been reproached many times because I think the world is camp. I'm Italian. We have Berlusconi. He's the campiest president on earth. I just reflect that. Camp is much more an aspect of our television language. I mean, it's camp. We have a camp president, and he's not gay, but he's camp. So I come from a very camp nation. So whatever. I don't think I am a very camp person, so I don't think my work is camp. I think people dub it as camp because they can't handle the fact that I'm trying again to reflect reality, that I'm being very honest about people's tastes and fascination and obsession. Unfortunately, people don't fetishize so much all the things that the art world would hope the audience would fetishize. In the end, the audience fetishizes Eva Mendes. If Paul, she's the sexiest woman on earth. If you read a magazine like, I don't know, like those magazines that we don't read, like Maxim or FHM or whatever, she's the sexiest woman on earth. That drives me crazy. Now, I asked her, I said, what it is, Eva, to be the sexiest? And you go out and you know that half of the men of the world think about you. It's fantastic. You want to work with somebody like that. I mean, my enthusiasm is genuine because I think she's a work of art. And I don't say this, Eva, you're a work of art, to convince her to work with me. I really think that if you become this person, however you become it, through your movies or your advertisement or whatever, that generates so much desire in men, it's amazing, it's a form of art. It transcends boundaries, culture. You think that men in India, in China, they look at the picture of this woman and they get aroused. It's fantastic. It's sociological. And that's why I just asked her, to embody for me some of the most historical sculptures of history of art, because, again, the way we relate to sculpture is such a rarefied, intellectualized version, whereas, you know, sculptures of the classical period were vehicles of sensuality and desire, I guess. I like to do public art. I find, for me, the most problematic aspect of my work is to do exhibition in galleries. Unless they're galleries which is fantastic, like Gagosian in Rome, which is like showing in an institution that draws to an opening 3,000 people, and it's like, you know, like a performance of the audience almost. For me to do shows in little galleries is a nightmare, because I love to always imagine not a big audience, which would be arrogant, but a public audience. It could be one person a month, but it has to be a public space. That maybe is something that comes from my left-wing education, that I always thought of art as you know, the only something public. The only piece of art that we had in my house, and it was not an expensive piece, was a little blackboard of Joseph Beuys that said "Kunst ist Kapital." No, that was a gift of a friend of my parents to my parents, so which would have horrified Salvador Dalí. But that's why I think, that's why I'm so happy about the Moderna Musette exhibition, because it's such a public place. And I don't say this to please the director or John Peter, but for me, the Moderna is so exciting because it is a symbol. It's a public place. It's the museum, which is a reference, and that is so fantastic. It's so exciting, like to imagine that your work will interact with audience, with children, with schools, with whatever. That's amazing. This is important to say. I am fascinated by celebrity, but I am more fascinated by the fact that people are fascinated by celebrities. This is for me very important to say. If I would have thought that in order to say something, in order to try to say something meaningful for the artistic discourse, I should have drawn a white line on a black piece of board, I would have done that, and still I would have watched my Marilyn Monroe movies. That's the power of art. Ciao.